Please be quiet, members of the public in the public gallery. Well, we have Mr. Allen coming as well. Please ask the administration to join us. Just in time. We have a quorum.
好啊，大家都好好彩啊！
Well, we hope that this will be the last meeting.
啱答正，我隻鐘答正，當佢喺晒度，冇個特留嘅關啦，大佬。好啊，今朝咧，我哋就係
We will continue with our scrutiny. If everything goes smoothly, we'll be able to complete the scrutiny today. There are some amendments from the administration. Perhaps I will ask the Deputy Secretary to take us through the salient points of the amendments. You don't have to go through them one by one because we've all read it. Thank you. We are still receiving letters expressing concern. Well, there's no need to deal with the letters. It's not that there is no need to discuss them. It's just that they are nothing to do with. They have nothing to do with the amendments. There are always correspondence. Maybe let's first deal with the amendments. There are a few more important ones. One is at the request of the sector, and we've already considered that. That is, that for some of the drugs, samples have to be kept. Say, for example, an approval has been given. However, there is some adjustments or change. There is one requirement asking the sector to keep a sample for some time for monitoring purpose. However, the trade told us that when it comes to expensive drugs, especially those that are not frequently used, and if there is just a change in the labeling, say for example an addition of a label or just a very minor amendment, and if for every amendment a sample has to be kept, this will increase the operating cost. And because if the drug is not frequently used, there is already a small quantity supply, and if they have to keep one sample, then the quantity available will be further reduced. We propose an amendment. You'll find it on page 4. So Annex 1, page 4. Actually, it's Annex 2. That is, under certain circumstances, exemptions will be given for them not to have to keep a sample. Is under 4 capital A, B, say for example, an addition of a leaflet, of a sleeve, or per package insert, or there is a replacement of the insert, and as long as there is no change when it comes to the content of the drugs or the information about the drug itself, then there is no need to keep a sample. And this is a more important amendment that will affect the trade. For the others, they are more textual amendments, say for example the wording of a Chinese translation. There is also one amendment, and we've discussed it with the legal advisor. if the P&P board exercised discretion, well, the Pharmacy and Poisons Board suspends the enforcement. Well, there is a mechanism which allows appeal, but there are inconsistencies. We worked with the legal advisor to align the different provisions under the appeal mechanism. Is item 10 in Annex 1. It's rather complicated. This affects the text, but for the rest, they are mostly textual amendments. We've discussed it with the legal advisor. Well, under a certain section, the appeal mechanism is inconsistent with the appeal mechanism under another provision. This point was raised by the legal advisor, and we think that it would be better to align them. And we've already gone through it with the legal advisor. So these two salient points. You'll find the administration's CSAs in the 3 annexes. Legal advisors. Our legal advisor has already given her comment. Any other questions from members? Legal advisor reminds me that maybe we need to go through Annex 3. You see words in different colors. DS, could you please take us through that? Annex 3. I'll go through them one by one. Page 1. The first one is in relation to a point raised by members. Clause 6 is to amend Section 4B, that is, the PPB will have to provide codes of conduct and codes of practice in the proper form by inspection of the public free of charge. And at that time, members asked whether it could be inspected online or can an electronic form be made available. And so we have made changes to this to in any other member the board thinks fit. Next one is Section 5, Bracket 2 of the PPO. That is, the Secretary must make the register of pharmacies available for inspection by the public free of charge at the office of the Secretary during normal office hours and in other manner the Secretary thinks fit. This is to protect privacy. Next one is Section 10(1). We renumber this to 10 bracket 1. And in relation to Section 10 bracket 2, the legal advisor, this is a point raised by the legal advisor, and this is in relation to the expression forges, and it should have the same meaning as in Part 4, forgery and related offences of the Crimes Ordinance. This is to ensure consistency. Clause 12 is in relation to Section 11 bracket 1. This is also a textual amendment. and the Chinese words 在場 in his presence is added to ensure consistency. Clause 13 is section 13 bracket 4C. The legal advisor suggested that there should be textual amendments, that is by a registered pharmacist or in his presence or in his presence or under his supervision. It is to be replaced with by a registered pharmacist or in the presence and under the supervision of a registered pharmacist to align with section 11(1) bracket 1. And clause 13 bracket 6 is a textual amendment to replace the secretary in these two provisions with the board to reflect the current practice. And the next one is clause 15 bracket 11. This is to add the new section 16(2)(b)(2)(a). Is a textual amendment to add open inverted commas in the Chinese text. Next one is clause 20 bracket 6 section in relation to section 25 bracket 3b, a textual amendment to replace 委員會 in the Chinese text, which is a committee, with 管理局 authority to align with the English text. And next, it's section 25 bracket 5. It's also an amendment suggested by the legal advisor to allow a person who is aggrieved by a decision of the board to appeal against such decision. Next is a new section 29(1)(j)(b), textual amendment to replace the word and with the textual amendment is to change 及 and 或 or. And next is 29(1)(b), also a Chinese textual amendment with change of the word to replace 臨床 clinical, but the Chinese word is different and is changed to a different word that means the same thing. Next is clause 23 bracket 20. It's a textual amendment to replace a provision in this ordinance or in regulation made under this section applies with a provision in this ordinance applies. Because under section 3 of Cap 1 Interpretation and General Clauses Ordinance, this ordinance should be wide enough to cover any regulation made under section 29 of the PPO. Therefore, it is not necessary to express mention a regulation made under this section in section 29(1)(b)(1), because it's already covered by Cap 1. Clause 24 is a textual amendment to replace 免費公眾查閱 for public inspection free of charge to 公眾免費查閱 for public inspection free of charge. Next is clause 25 bracket 1 section 3 in relation to section 31AA, and is to align the provisions in relation to the appeals mechanism I just mentioned earlier. Clause 26 bracket 2 to replace registered medical practitioners with registered medical practitioner, because there will only be one registered medical practitioner appointed upon repealing section 321 of a PPO as proposed. Clause 30 to replace fine with civil debt, to reflect the policy intention that the amount to be recovered as ordered by the court will be compensatory in nature, in line with the concept of recovery of cost. And for avoidance of doubt, to add a new subsection 3 to preserve the power of the court to order costs under the Costs in Criminal Cases Ordinance, Cap 492, in respect of a criminal case convicted under the PPO, and for that matter, the relevant provisions under this the earlier ordinance and its subsidiary legislation will continue to apply. Clause 43, a textual amendment to renumber the clause repealing Regulation 24BA as Clause 43.1.
Clause 43 of the bill, Regulation 24B(b) of the PPL, a textual amendment suggested by the ALA to replace "in whose presence" or "under whose supervision" with "by whom" or "in whose presence" and "under whose supervision" to align with Section 11(1) of the PPO. Clause 46(5) of the bill is an amendment in response to inquiry from ALA to allow an applicant or licensed wholesale dealer who is aggrieved by a decision of the committee under subsection (5)(b) of this provision to appeal against such decision. This is also to align the appeal mechanism. Clause 49 of the bill, that's new Regulation 28A(6) of the PPL, to amend new Regulation 28A(6) of the PPL so as to require the board to make the GMP guide available for inspection by the public free of charge in any manner the board thinks fit, apart from making the GMP guide available at the Secretary's office during normal office. So this is the version on the web. Clause 52 of the bill, new Regulation 30B(5) of the PPL, to amend Regulation 30B(5) of the PPL so as to specify the purposes of the Register of Authorized Persons. This is to ensure that the operation of the Register of Authorized Persons complies with the data protection principles enshrined in Schedule 1 to the PDPO and require the Secretary to make the Register of Authorized Persons available for inspection by the public free of charge in any manner the Secretary thinks fit, apart from thinking the Register available at the Secretary's office during normal hours. Clause 52 of the bill, an amendment in response to inquiry from ALA to allow a person who is aggrieved by a decision of the committee under subsection 3 of this provision to appeal against such decision. Clause 55 of the bill, Regulation 33 of PPL, to amend Regulation 33 of the PPL to provide certain flexibility for manufacturers in maintaining sample of finished products. This was what I mentioned just now. It's a major amendment. Clause 58(3) of the bill, a textual amendment to add 本條例 before 第24A(1) in the Chinese text. Regulation 2(5) of PPL provides that where in these regulations reference is made to a numbered section, the reference shall be a reference to that section of the ordinance. It is therefore not necessary to add off the ordinance after a numbered section in PPL. Clause 58(6) of the bill, it is a textual amendment to delete "yi" in the Chinese text of this provision. Clause 58(10) of the bill, a textual amendment to replace 臨床 wherever appearing in the Chinese text of this provision with 臨床 to align with the current drafting practice. The writing of the Chinese character is different. New Clause 59(1)(a), Clause 59(2), and new Clause 59(2)(a) of the bill, a textual amendment to replace 臨床 wherever appearing in the Chinese text of the heading and the relevant provisions with 臨床 to align with the current drafting practice. Clause 59(4) of the bill, a textual amendment to replace Clause 59(4) in the Chinese text of the bill with (4) 第 36B(3) 條，廢除在後，加碼之後而在年之前的所有字句，代以在他認為適宜施加的條件的規限下，發出符合指明格定的臨床試驗證明書或藥物測試證明書，而該證明書的有效期不超逾5年。The amendment is proposed since the current Chinese text of Clause 59(4) has the effect of repealing the phrase of 參閱附表8表格12 in Regulation 36B(3) of PPL. At the same time, this phrase is also repealed by Clause 59(5) of the bill. Hence, the amendment is needed to avoid double deletion as suggested by ALA. Clause 59(6) of the bill, a textual amendment, the term 臨床 is replaced. Clause 59(7) of the bill, the same 臨床, the writing of the Chinese character 床 is different. Clause 62 of the bill, and then This is a textual amendment to replace powers in the heading of the provision in the English text with power. Clause 62 of the bill, a textual amendment to replace 免費公眾查閱 wherever appearing in the Chinese text of this provision with 公眾免費查閱. New Clause 63A of the bill, a consequential amendment pursuant to CSAs proposed in item 23 above to provide for the penalties of breaching the conditions for exemption, to add new Clause 63A of the bill to amend Regulation 40 of the PPL. 63A, Regulation 40 amended. Bracket penalties, Regulation 40. Repeal 33 bracket 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Substitute 33 bracket 1, 2, 3, 4, 4B or 5. This is an amendment to the numbering. Clause 65 bracket 65 of the bill. As suggested by ALA, to repeal this clause as the amendment set out has already been made under Section 2 bracket 1 of the Pharmacy and Poisons Amendment Regulation 2014. Clause 66 bracket 1 of the bill, a textual amendment to replace 附表5及附表10 with 附表5及10 in the Chinese text of the Clause 66 bracket 1 of the bill. Clause 67 bracket 1 of the bill, a textual amendment suggested by ALA to replace 為施行本條例的27括弧C with 為施行本條例第27括弧C in the Chinese text of the heading of the 5th schedule to the PPR in Clause 67 bracket 1 of the bill. Clause 70 of the bill. A technical amendment suggested by ALA to add a total of 11 new substances into the new Schedule 10 to the PPL. After the bill was introduced into LegCo in March 2014, a total of 11 new substances have been added to Division A of Part 1 of the Poisons List in the Schedule to the Poisons List Regulations, pursuant to the Poisons List Amendment Regulation 2014 and Poisons List Amendment No. 2 Regulation 2014. These are new substances. During our scrutiny, new medicines have been added. Clause 70 of the bill, a textual amendment to replace the numbering of Bulletin 1 with D and 2 with E in the Chinese text under 但含有下列任何毒藥的藥劑製品除外, so as to align the numbering of the English text. So this is also about numbering. Thank you. Well, when we look at Schedule 3, those are very minute amendments. I would like to thank the ALA for looking into such great details. Members, any questions concerning this part? During the scrutiny, some of these suggestions were made by members. Now amendments have been made. Dr. Kwokaki, I would like to ask about the inspection of the pharmacist register. Other than the Secretariat, which clause are you talking about? Annex 3. Well, for inspection, we have talked about it for several times. That's Clause 7. So that should be Item 2. Clause 7 of the bill, Section 5, Bracket 2 of the PPO. It is about the register of pharmacists. In other subsidiary legislations, whether it is set out clearly that is the Internet, because other than the Internet, there's no other channel. After the Secretariat is closed, through which channels can you do such inspections? Well, actually, this question was discovered at the last meeting. The way of drafting it now is in any other manner the Secretary thinks fit. Now, if we just state Internet, then it's not flexible, because in the future we don't know what other channels will be available. And if we say Internet, then without flexibility, in the future, if there's any change, then we have to amend the law. Technology is advancing fast. And for Internet, now we also have smartphone apps, so there will be a lot of changes in the future. We are using this phrase because we want to make it flexible. This is a way of law drafting. We do not want this to restrict the manner. We just want it to be flexible. When there are other available channels, they are also applicable. About consistency, so for those who want to inspect the register or all the professional registers, you will use the same phrase? Well, there are two questions here. Last time we had a discussion, and we said that under a lot of circumstances, the inspection can be done. So now the government has changed it to, in any other manner the Secretary thinks fit. So you can do whatever you like. You can use mobile phone apps. You can go onto the Internet, etc. So we want to align the phrases within this piece of legislation. But as for other disciplines, for example, dentists, doctors, as to whether they are the same, we have to ask the government. Well, so for some other laws, we have adopted this phrase. But for other pieces of legislation, maybe they haven't had any amendments lately, so this has not been changed. Now, we are amending this ordinance, so it's an appropriate opportunity for us to change this. That is the manner of inspection. If members think this is better, then in the future when we amend other relevant ordinances, we can do the same. But we don't want to make this change and then amend the whole ordinance. So we will have to wait for the right opportunity to make this amendment. This is our general direction. So this is a precedent. Now, our Bills Committee has suggested this. That is, in the future, if there are similar ordinances, for example, concerning midwives, nurses, doctors, dentists, you can do the same thing. Yes, because this is more convenient. So in the future, when we amend the relevant ordinances, we will also change this phrase. Any other questions with regards to the CSAs? There are no other CSAs? No. If not, then we have completed the scrutiny of the bill. I would like to thank our colleagues and the government officials for their efforts. I know that the government would still like to talk about some issues before we finish the meeting. We will be talking about the resumption of second meeting later, but are there any other things that you want to raise? Well, you said that there has been correspondences and there have been different comments, but these comments have nothing to do with our amendments. Yes, of course there will be implications, but we will handle those on another occasion. So I think the scrutiny has come to an end. Members, if there are no other questions, then we will end this part. And according to the procedures, on 21st of January next year, the resumption, there will be the resumption of second reading. You can see the relevant timetable. And on the 6th of January, it will be submitted to the House Committee, and they will decide on the exact date of resumption of second reading. On the 9th of January, this will be reported to the House Committee. And if members want to make amendments, you can do that in accordance with this timetable. If everything goes smoothly and if the second reading and third reading also go through Legislative Council smoothly, then when will this bill comes into effect?
We plan that on the 21st of January, the bill will be read the second time in the sitting, and under section under clause 1, it is first of all first of all, the subsidiary legislations will be given to the Legco for endorsement. Apart from section 15 of the PPO, in relation to those provisions that has to be gazetted before they come into effect, we reckon that they will come into effect on the 30th of January next year. Any other views? You know, there is no other business. We've completed this. We've used a lot of time to complete this very simple scrutiny. If you have other views, well, you may express your views in the sitting. Thank you.